Welcome everybody. Welcome everybody. Gather in, huddle around. Come on board. We're getting started here. Thank you for just another day to come on here and stream again with you all. I'd like to talk to you about a few things. Actually, before I even get into describing what we're going to talk about, I want to go into actually playing a video. I posted earlier in this week on Monday a video on my page, but I want to go ahead and play that a video again. So just it's a video of Shaquille O'Neal. He went viral back in January, and for some things that he had said about being open with women. So I wanted to play that video and then give you guys a chance to think about it. What are your thoughts about it? And then I'll weigh in and say what I think about what's going on in this video. So all right, let me go ahead and play this real quick.
Open up to a woman?
Yeah.
Never. No, never.
When's the last time you think you've opened up to a woman?
We don't.
Your whole life?
Bro, I'm telling you.
Got players like I could, me and him related.
Yeah.
It's our first time meeting,
Yeah,
but
I can tell you guys, there's some connection here.
Oh, no.
If they going to tell you can.
Because you know why?
But it's a trap.
Because you know why?
I'm trapped like a motherfucker.
No, I'm going to tell you why. Because once you do, whenever something go down, they're going to throw it back in your face.
Well, I've had.
All right. So you guys saw that there. Those are remarks by Shaquille O'Neal saying he never open up to a woman. All right. Feel free to put it in the comments. Let me know. What do you think about that? If you're a male, would you ever open up to a woman? If you're female, what do you think about man saying to never? You said never, not even once. Don't even attempt to even think about it, or put your lips together to even consider such a thing. What are your thoughts about that? Is he right? Is that something that men should do? Should they aspire to do more than that? All right. So there's a lot of people with a lot of different opinions and so on and so forth. But in particular, what do you think is driving him to say that? Right. I don't think that comes in a vacuum. And Shaquille O'Neal is not the only person to ever feel that way. Right. There's a lot of men out there that do not fully openly express themselves in their relationships. And so they kind of hold back. And actually, what we'll be talking about today is men and their emotional freedom. More generally, but also we're going to relate it back to specifically the relationship context. So go ahead and feel free to weigh in and let me know what you think about that. What your thoughts are regarding, Shaquille O'Neal saying such things. Now, I'm going to go ahead and say what I got to say about it. Shaquille O'Neal, when it comes to men, if you think about a big man, masculine, strong man, there's no other example to use for a man to represent that than Shaquille O'Neal. Dude's like 7'1,000. He's super tall, super big, muscles. He's considered by a lot of folks to be the most dominant player to ever play the game of basketball. Most dominant big man. They had to create a new hack-a-shack technique just to try to stop him and slow him down and beat him all the time. Dude's just huge. He's like a monster. It's like if you tried to hit him, your fist would probably crumble on his chest or something like that. All right. So if there's anybody out there that's the image of a manly man, it would be him. And it's this guy that ends up saying you cannot open up to your woman. That's his opinion. And I find that interesting. Not just interesting, but you should find it interesting. Why do you think that those things would coincide with each other? That's such a strong image of a strong man would also be synonymous with somebody who says they can't freely uh express themselves to the person that's supposed to be the love of their lives, right? Their significant other. It takes something to get somebody to that particular position. And actually, what we often associate with strength for men is the inability to have pain. I'm gonna go straight into it. We don't think that we can even hurt somebody like Shaquille O'Neal. He's so big and massive, I can't even hurt him, right? Just the idea, like I said, when I punch him, all of a sudden my hand gonna crumble and fall apart when I hit him or something like that. There's no way we can possibly even phase such a masculine, strong, man like Shaquille O'Neal, but yet he's on here saying that you should never open up to a woman. Never. All right. And maybe it is because Shaquille O'Neal's been hurt before that he even said what he actually had to say. I'm gonna go ahead and play the clip again, but I want to focus on the end part for what his reason why he said what he said.
Open up to a woman?
Yeah.
Never. No, never.
When's the last time you think you've opened up to a woman?
We don't.
Your whole life.
Bro, I'm telling you.
We got players like I could, me and him related.
Yeah.
It's our first time meeting,
Yeah, I
but
can tell you guys, there's some
no.
connection here.
Oh, no.
They're going to tell you can't.
Because you know why?
But it's a trap.
Because you know why?
I'm trapped like a motherfucker.
No, I'm going to tell you why. Because once you do, whenever something go down, they're going to throw it back in your face.
So that's that.
All right. So he said the reason why he believes that he should never open up to a woman is because once you do, they're going to throw it back in your face. This suggests that maybe, just maybe, hear me out, that the big, strong Shaquille O'Neal, what called him Superman back in the day. A lot of times people think of the Man of Steel, Superman, bullets just bounce off and can't even hurt him, right? But I want to suggest to you that maybe, just maybe, the Man of Steel has been hurt at some point in his life. That at some point he opened up and shared some bit of information, and they got thrown back in his face, used as a weapon, weaponized against him by a woman that was close to him. And guess what happened to him? He was hurt. He was hurt. Now, a lot of folks, when you look at Shaquille O'Neal, the first thing that you think to yourself is not that this is a hurt man. You see him as somebody strong. All right, I look up to him. I like that about him, man. You know, there's a lot of people attracted to that, right? But I see a hurt man in this video. I see a man that's going through pain. And because of that pain, he's stiff and rigid, become very rigid. He's not able to open up the same way because he's afraid to get his heart hurt again. And I talk about these things because we need to be able to recognize the signs. These are things we don't talk about when it comes to men, when it comes to somebody being hurt. For example, let's think about a woman when she's been hurt by men doing her wrong, not caring about her, using her for just her body and different things like that. And when they stiffen up and they're not opening their heart out, right, and all this other stuff, and they act and lash out certain ways, they say men ain't this and men ain't that. We recognize that those are symptoms of somebody who's had a history of being hurt by men. But what are the signs when a man has a history of being hurt by women? We don't recognize that. We don't read that. And a lot of folks, I've read through the comic sections of a lot of videos on the interwebs about Shaquille O'Neal and what happened. And a lot of people, quite frankly, pretty much just say, oh, I want to open up to women. What's wrong with him? He don't like women. What he hate about women? Why has he got so much anger inside him? Why he mad? Right? There's a lot of opinions about what is it, but hardly anybody's saying that, oh, Shaq's been hurt before. Oh, that's so sad. Because you see this big, strong fella that got all these muscles popping out his earlobes and veins on his forehead everywhere. And we don't think that these people are capable of being hurt. They're invincible. But we're wrong. We're wrong. It is exactly pain that leads him to be and portray the image that he's actually portraying right now. It's what keeps him some tough and willing to fight and knock folks over. One famous clip, if any basketball fans in here, when he dunked on Chris Dudley, he did the little spin move and dunked on them so hard, knocked them over into the ground, and pushed them onto the floor. I was like, dang, that's a beast right there. What turns you into that type of animal? Sometimes it's pain. You ever speaking of an animal, have you ever gone up to an animal that's been hurt before and tried to help it out? What did it do? You see it over there limping along, and it's like, oh, what's wrong? Let me take a look at it. You go over there and try to help it out, and it's to start biting at you and being angry and aggressive with you, right? A lot of times that aggressiveness, that toughness, some of that edge that's some of the ladies out there liking the men, some of that's been fashioned out of pain. And you have to recognize the signs of it because men don't express their pain the same way women do. I talked about this briefly last video, and that's what kind of leading into this discussion here. And it's that when men go through some things, they go through their pain. There's only certain safe ways that society allows them to openly express themselves and still be considered a strong masculine man. And being angry, being tough, aggressive, those are things that we are allowed to do. Anger is perfectly fine. If I walk around angry, like, what's up? What y'all want to do? You know what I'm saying? People start respecting, sitting up. I ain't gonna mess with him. He can get people's lunch money out of, right? So that to a certain extent, some people to a certain extent respect the guy that stands up a little tough and hard and with an edge like that, very protective. But a lot of times that comes out of pain. Now, I'm not saying that everybody who puts on that image out of pain. A lot of people put on a performance. A lot of times it's an act. Because again, there's a lot of women who find it attractive. And so therefore, some people will put on the act and put on the tough image and show that stoicness, just even though they don't have that pain on the inside, but they'll do what they have to say. But there's also a lot of folks who truly do have that pain on the inside, and that's what they're walking around with, carrying from day to day throughout their lives. Let me if you guys remember back in 2004, in that election, it was a John Kerry versus George Bush, and George Bush won the election. But if you go back to the primary election, that was before the general election, we're trying to figure out who the Democratic president for president will be before, to run against George Bush. And when he had already started the Iraq wars and all that other stuff. Well, somebody that had a gained popularity was Howard Dean. Email was starting to get more popular and all that stuff, and he started using that to solicit and run a campaign and made a lot of money off of that. And so it was changing the way fundraising was happening in politics and all that other stuff. But I don't want to get too far off the track. Howard Dean was a lot of people thought he was going to run away and win this thing, but somehow John Kerry came out with it. But the main thing that most people will contribute to it, feel free to Google it. If you Google Howard Dean's name, you're probably going to see this video that I'm about to play right here. But the main thing that people say, kind of messed up his campaign was that he screamed. He was excited after a primary win and was just, he ended up screaming during a rally. And after people heard that scream, they was like, what the heck was going on? And that his poll numbers started tanking after that, and he lost it. He ended up losing. All right. So somebody who was on top, was supposed to win it, almost getting a coronation to winning the Democratic nomination for president. Suddenly his campaign's out of order because of the scream. And I'm gonna play it right here.
Going to South Carolina and Oklahoma and Arizona and North Dakota and New Mexico. And we're going to California and Texas and New York. And we're going to South Dakota and Oregon and Washington and Michigan. And then we're going to Washington, D.C. to take back the White House. Yeah!
All right. So that's that scream at the very end, that that cost him his campaign. It was like some people looked at him and saw him scream that way, like, that's not the image you're supposed to do. You can't do that. No, sir. No, sir. You cannot do that. I'm sorry. What were you thinking? But that was a man in his emotions. He got carried away, crowd was getting hyped. He was in the moment, and he allowed himself to feel his feelings a little bit too much, and they showed on the outside, and next thing you know, campaign tanked. And so it's about time we have a conversation. What are the costs that men pay for fully on expressing their full range of emotions here on this planet Earth? Actually, I remember there was a little, I guess, a viral trend. I don't know how viral it is, but I guess you can call it that. But it was black men posting videos of themselves frolicking. Yes, frolicking and just frolicking through fields and stuff like that. You might want to Google it, black men frolicking, and just look at some videos and see what it's saying. It was supposed to be something just kind of funny or whatever, just to allow, that hey, black men can do something like this, such as frolicking. And the simple fact that it was such a thing was like, wow, why does this have to be weird that a black man can be associated with it showing his full range of emotions? Now, that specifically was a black man type of trend thing, because we often associate that image of, again, blackness with that tough, that hardened, sometimes associated with thugs and street and criminals and gangs, all this other stuff, right? Media tends to associate with black men, but it was putting up a contrary image, and it was like it became comedy to a certain extent just to see it happening and think about men just frolicking around. It seems like that's something silly. But we have to wonder and ask ourselves, why did something like that have to be something that's just a trend, something that we can laugh at, or something that or that wouldn't be in the normal range of behaviors that a man might be able to express, whether black or otherwise. And that's something we have to be honest with ourselves about. And so let's get into this emotional freedom. What is emotional freedom? Emotional freedom is exactly what the words say. Basically, are you free to truly express yourself, in your fullest? Of course, Constitution wise, you're going to be free and all that other stuff. But what consequences do you pay? Specifically, relationally speaking, if you're a man, specifically, I'm gonna focus on heterosexual men, right? If you're a heterosexual male and you express your full extent of emotions, you know what I'm saying? If I'm feeling good, I'm feeling myself, you know what I'm saying? I'm in my soft guy era, whatever you want to be in, right? There's videos talking about that now. What'll happen is that will people start calling you sassy? That's a common word that's flying around these days, right? Will you be called sassy? Or, if I start, wanting to vogue, and, hey, what you doing? At some point, somebody's likely to start calling that man, what's the word? Flamboyant. That word will get thrown on the ground really quick. Now, again, I'm talking about a heterosexual male. A heterosexual male might be called flamboyant if he was to fully express the full range of emotions that he has at any one given point in time. And so you have to ask yourself, why is that? And again, flamboyant is just a term, but what do people associate that with? Because if you're a heterosexual male and somebody calls you flamboyant, a lot of times people associate that with homosexuality. So what are the costs if a man ends up being viewed as a homosexual and he's actually a heterosexual, right? I'm not saying anything wrong with the homosexuality, but if you're actually a heterosexual, do you have anything to lose by people calling you a homosexual? Directly, it might seem like no. It's like, hey, people can think whatever they want to think. However, if you're a heterosexual, you're a man. Women are highly selective. They've always have been. About 40% of men throughout human history, scientists believe, have not had the opportunity to reproduce, while about over twice as many women, about 80-something% of women have had a chance to reproduce, right? And so when it comes to getting women, men struggle with that, right? There's a lot of women, if they wanted to, get with somebody, hook up with somebody by the end of the night, if they really wanted to, even though it's 9:23 here on the East Coast here, by midnight, if they really wanted to, they could have something go down. All right, they can put something together. They don't need, even if they ain't got no man, they ain't got no numbers in their phone, they can go out to a phone, be like, hey, you want to come on with me? I'm like, dude, like, okay, yeah, and it's that simple. A dude, on the other hand, I mean, if you're Wilt Chamberlain or something, depending on how famous you are, maybe if you Drake or something, you can probably pull it off. But the majority of men, it's like, I'm gonna need some more time with that. You know what I'm saying? That's a little bit too tough for me. So at the end of the day, there's a bit of a scarcity problem on the male side when it comes to access to women. And because of that scarcity problem, men in general don't want to shut off opportunities for women of the opposite sex. And so if a woman were to think that a man was flamboyant, and if there are any women's that are watching this video, feel free to pipe in and let me know what you think. But if there are any women, you happen to know that somebody, if you find out that somebody, if you believe a guy's gay or is a little flamboyant or whatever term you want to call it, what's the likelihood that you're gonna holler at him? All right. What's the likelihood you're gonna be turned on by that? What's the likelihood you'll be attracted to that person as opposed to no, I'm good. If a guy tells you it's like, you know what, I wear heels on Friday, but I'm straight. Are you gonna pass on that? You be like, nah, I'm good. I'm good. No, I want a man that only does a certain thing and doesn't move too far outside that zone. All right. There's a lot of pressures on men to stay within a certain frame, to stay within a certain zone. And if they stray outside of it, something's going to happen. And it's not something that we're born with. If you look at real young boys, when they're growing up, when they become toddlers, when they're babies, toddlers, and all that other stuff, a lot of the ways they act are very similar to how young baby girls act in a lot of ways. All right. There are differences, of course, but they'll scream and if a grown man scream right now, what you gonna say? What names did they get called? Right. However, at some point, when little boys start screaming, at some point, folks try to shut them down and be like, "Hey, don't be screaming like that. You're a man," stuff like that. Well, don't we do that stuff to men in society? So we get socialized in quite a bit to be expected to only be able to behave within certain ranges. Even when little boys get hurt, fall, skin their knee or something like that, right? They can cry up to a certain age, but at some point people be like, "Oh, little boy, quit your crying, man. Get up." You know what I'm saying? It's like there ends up being a higher expectation on his behavior. There's only a certain range of emotions. He learns real quick. Like, okay, my crying and all this stuff, acting like I'm even fazed by that pain, that's not going to work out. Actually, even in the NBA, if somebody takes a hard hit, they're more likely to just lay down with their face covered up on the ground or whatever, and for a while, and just wait for a while. And by the time they get up, they got a straight face on. You ever seen that? You ever noticed that? By the time they get up, they got a straight face, like ain't nothing happened, even though they were sitting on the floor for a whole minute, covering up their face, whatever. A lot of times, again, there's only a certain range of emotions that men are allowed to have without risk of being labeled one thing or another. And I'll come back and I'll talk about, different homosexuality and different things like that, and how that all plays into things as well, because I've been mainly focusing on heterosexual relationships and stuff. And actually, I can't talk too much about homosexual relationships because I don't have that the same experience and knowledge base to go into that. So I don't want to speak on what I have ignorance on. But there are some few things that I think we as a society need to touch upon in order to make sure that we're advancing and think about things the right way. So I will come back to that in a future video, maybe sometime soon. Depends on I don't know what I'm feeling like every week, but let me know what you think about I should be covering. So bottom line is I've run into a lot of women who say that they will not holler at a man who's gay. They find out that there was some reality TV show where some dating show or whatever with some couples, and there was a black guy. He actually had homosexual relationships in the past, and he was actually it was Love Is Blind, I think, one of the early seasons.
Season 1.
Yeah, season 1. There you go. Love Is Blind season 1, right? There was a homosexual guy that was on there. But he was, trying to hook up with the girl. I guess he's bisexual, whatever you want to call it. All right, whatever name he wants to go by and terminate phrase it. But
no more.
But essentially, he ends up the girl that he connected with. They were supposedly in love with each other and all that stuff. Proposed. You got to propose without ever seeing the person. Well, without ever seeing people, you got to make a proposal to the person. And they have to accept it, as the show goes on. And you finally get together, and everything's working perfectly good until the man came out and said that he had homosexual relations in the past, and so all of a sudden their relationship started going downhill from that. Now, granted, the dude he does have some therapy probably that he needed in his life at that time to deal with and cope with some of the abandonment and other things he was apparently dealing with at that time, and he didn't react well to her. But her first reaction wasn't openly receptive, like, "Oh, okay, that's cool." you know, because if he had said like, yeah, I was with this one girl, now you know we got together for a while, you know, we slept around or whatever, there wouldn't have been that big of a reaction. But the fact that you know he said that it was with a dude, there was a bigger reaction. There's like a pause, like, oh, hold on, I gotta process this. What's going on, loading, processing it, right? So there is a risk that a person looking for a homosexual relationship as a man takes on if he steps out certain bounds. And remember, that's just his gender expression, essentially. If he were to allow himself to express his full range of emotions, that's not even his sexuality, his sexual orientation, right? Sexual orientation and how you express yourself, express your gender, are two different things. All right. So, for example, just because a girl watches football doesn't mean she's gay, right? You know, that's what I mean. You know, so your sexual orientation separate from the way you express your gender. But nonetheless, society does not blends a lot of these things together, right? And if you go too far off the edge, you know, yeah, nah, I can't even rock with you like that, dog. And you're gonna be lonely a lot if you show up in certain ways. So men have to be careful about how they show up a lot of the time. So and that's just the reality of what it is. So the bottom line is men in America do not have emotional freedom to express their full range of emotions. And because of that, you have to be able to notice that, you know, there are signs. So Shaquille O'Neal, he's not going to come out and openly say, you know, hey, you know, I've been hurt by some women before, and so therefore I don't open myself up anymore to women. That's not what he's going to end up saying. He's just going to just tell you not to open them up. They're just going to throw it back in your face. He ain't going to act like he's ever phased them none, because he can't. That's not the way that men are allowed to openly express themselves and still maintain their manhood. There's a lot of men who got too comfortable with a woman and felt like they could express certain things a certain way and freely be openly, and that they woman would accept and love them the same way. And they saw that woman changed up all of a sudden. She started looking at them a different way, and the relationship ain't never been the same ever since. And they learned the hard way that they couldn't go that way no more. They had to, you know, straighten out. So there's a lot of risk there for a man on his side. And even if your man's with you and you think to yourself, you know what, I think I'm an open person and I can accept these things. I can you know, I want to be able to be fully in tune with my man, and you should. That's a good thing, right? And men should be able to fully express themselves to their women, right? Shouldn't have to hold back areas of themselves and have to be stuck in that limited box. Well, I talked about how men have that burden of innocence last week. So we talk about this burden of having to hide these emotions behind this mask, and we just get so good at it that we have this stoicness about us. I remember when my son first started showing it, you know, he used to be openly laugh and play and kind of do it, but all of a sudden he's more, you know, stringent and trying to think things over before he reacts to certain stuff, and you know, and all this other stuff, because that lets you know that they're suddenly running into some things in life that are causing conflict. They have to work this stuff out. And for them, it's interesting at a kid level, because they have to stop and take some thinking and processing and pausing and stuff. Whereas by the time you dealing with a grown man my age, it's automatic. You don't have to do all that. That's called socialization, when things become automatic over time. Think about how you drive a car, right? When you first trying to learn how to drive, you over there swiveling your head, looking all over the place, going slow. It feels like there's so much you got to pay attention to. Hold on, turn that radio down. I can't focus. Hold on, I need to make sure I get to where I need to get without making an accident or something. And eventually, as years go by, all of a sudden you ain't sweating a thing. You just got your arm back and you just riding on. Cut the music up. Hey, what's going on? I was like, roll that window down. What up, Shorty, man? I see you. Yeah, that's how it gets over time. So that's where our brain works. It, you know, things that we do repetitively over and over, it kind of makes shortcuts for us. And you know, that's the way our biases and all that stuff work. But the way our brain is wired is so that it makes things easy and quick for us. And that's how socialization works. We learn that it's the same way why kids openly express themselves. Like when you say kids speak the truth, you know, they don't hold back no information, you know, but like, you'd be like, "Hey, little cute kid, how are you doing?" And then you'd be like, how are you doing today?" And then when you lean forward and get in their face, smile and stuff, they'd be like, "Your breath stank," and they're not even thinking a thing about it because they haven't been socialized and taught that, hey, there's certain things you can't say, and if you say it, there are consequences for it. But over time, they learn these lessons. Eventually, it's automatic. People just simply know not to go that way. And so we've all been socialized in a lot of different ways. There's certain things you can't say, otherwise they might call you racist, or they might call you sexist, or they might do this, that, or the other. Whereas a kid might more freely just blurt that stuff out and like, "Oh, you're not supposed to say that." And I tell the story about when there was a kid that was there was a little girl that was swimming at the swimming pool, and a little young white girl came up to me and was like, "Hey, why are your nipples that color?" Mother was all embarrassed, like, "Oh, you ain't supposed to ask." But like, she just asked about a color, man. Y'all teach the colors on the rainbow and all that stuff in school. It shouldn't be no problem with that. But we've been socialized so hard and so stigmatized about the issue of race and color and stuff like that, that it's like an ultimate sin, and that we react in weird ways, and we don't even realize that we act in real ways. We actually think the children are the ones acting weird, and it's not us. And that's how bad, deep the socialization is. So the same thing is true about how men are raised up. They are socialized to respond to different scenarios in certain ways. We can't scream in certain ways and act like we're scared. We got to show a certain image. We become so good at it, it's automatic. All right. We didn't start out that way when we were little kids, but we learned to put it on. Life, hard knocks might have taught us to be that stoic and hard and all that. One way or another, that's where it ends up being. And so the question is, even if you're a woman, you're in a relationship with this man, and you feel like, hey, I want him to open up, I want him to feel like he has no risk or whatever. Number one, you have to make that space safe for him. But even if you do, us men, we've been through so many years of our lives and seen the same story so many times that there's no guarantee that that person will open up that way. All right, there's no guarantee that he will. It's all a gamble. For example, if he's in a loving relationship with you, everything's perfectly fine. He's seen relationships turn sideways and people started looking at him different all of a sudden when he opened up or expressed himself certain ways over the years. The question he has to ask himself, why would he risk it by coming out of that frame, by showing a different side of himself, expressing themselves a different way? Why take the risk when he got something good going on? Of course, it might be great to be able to fully express themselves, but hey, I've been carrying this weight, this load and burden all by myself all these years. Why not keep it going? Why take the risk of messing up love and then I don't have any type of love connected at all? When I know that if I keep this up, there's benefits to it, that there's people that are actually attracted to that image, that tough image. There's a lot of women that have a lot of emotions themselves, and their emotions are up and down. They got hormones going through their body, right? Dealing with those every month and stuff like that. And so a lot of women who deal with that type of thing, they're like, I prefer a man that seems like he has some stability in himself, right? So again, he's rigid. He stayed in the lane. That's what stability is associated with. So if he expressed himself too wildly and chaotically, all of a sudden I'm like, I don't know how to look at him. Let me ask you this. Ladies, have you ever been with a guy? And around you, he's always stoic, hard, straight image. Nah, what's up with you? Nothing, chilling, you know what I'm saying? If I just hold myself and have a conversation with you like that, when you're on a first date, that's gonna work out just fine. If I'm on the first date, like, hey, how you doing? So I'm just like, whoa, all right, check, please. I'm out. So there's risk in a man being fully expressive, even if he's joking around. There's risk being fully expressive. So back to my question. How many of you ladies have ever actually, I'm gonna hold on to that question. I'm gonna come back and ask it a little bit later. But we have to be at a point in our society where we have to be willing to acknowledge that men don't have an emotional freedom, and that is what it is. That a lot of society incentivizes them to do it. It's not just that they're acting weird. They've been trained this way. They got to that point some way, somehow. And even if you try your hardest not for it to happen, the rest of society is going to train them. As long as he's around other folks, trust me, the rest other folks in society is going to train them and teach them that same lesson too. And there's subconscious ways that a lot of folks are not aware of that they end up doing the same thing as well, even if they have the best of intentions. However, at the end of the day, and there's pros and cons to showing up in different ways. When you've ever been to a funeral, I know men and women have felt like they've had to be the strong one for the family in certain cases and not break down in tears and cry and stuff like that. And so there are, and some people try to look up and look for that strong person for strength and stuff like that. And even the strong people need somebody else to lean on for strength. People who are pastors that are helping people at churches all day and every day, they lean upon other pastors for support in those different times. So we gotta be able to be willing to face this thing straightforward and know exactly what it is. But where it's also important is you got to be able to pick up all the signs of it. A lot of these dudes that's acting hard and like thugs and all this other stuff, some of these folks are come from a lot of pain and they have hardened hearts. And so when you ask why these men are acting out and lashing this way, they've been hurt. All right. So whatever compassion you would give to a woman who's extra bitter towards men, for example, it's like, well, I understand her because she's been through some stuff and dudes did her wrong. Sometimes you might want to have some of that same compassion towards a dude that says, hey, I understand him. He's been through some things with the women who did the wrong. And I know a lot of times it's hard for a lot of women to realize that, hey, women can do men wrong, but the men have been hurt. They've been hurt one way or another, and they lock up. So, for example, if they say, hey, when I was young and my daddy started yelling at me and he beat me up or blah, blah, blah when I was a kid, and, she was like, oh, that's so sad. And you had a moment, his close opened up. He let you know all this other stuff. And then all of a sudden later on in the they get into an argument or something go wrong. So like, see, you act just like your daddy. And all of a sudden, bam, it's like, oh, now you messed it up. He opened up to you once. Now he ain't opening up no more. Have you ever been in a relationship with a man who at one point you felt like he was open? He expressed, he showed himself and exposed himself. He was willing to be vulnerable to you in a whole lot of ways. And then you messed it up at one point and he just closed up the door. You couldn't open it back up one way or another. So you may have said something. And whether you take the responsibility for messing it up or you blame him for just acting weird and he responded the wrong way and he shouldn't have took it that way, whatever way you want to look at the end of the day, that dude hardened up and turned into something else. He had to turn into what he needed to turn into in order to survive and keep going on. And a lot of us do that in our relationships. We got some bad things, infidelity and different things that happen up. And the innocence and freeness that we once opened up within that relationship, suddenly it's gone. We hardened up. We have protectiveness and shell up in certain ways. So we need self-awareness of what's going on. We need to be also recognize the signs of it, because you really can't heal these things unless you know why it's going on. And these men have pain. I don't care if you're as big as strong as Shaquille O'Neal. He has pain too. All of us have pain. And a lot of it's, being shielded up on the outside. And so men need their emotional freedom to be able to express themselves. It'll be easier for folks to be able to pick up on the emotions that they're going through if they were able to do so. But I don't see that happening no time soon in society, just being honest. So we just have to be better readers. You got to read between the lines and not just look on the surface like, hey, every man that says something, it's not that they hate women. They've been hurt. That's where a lot of that's coming from when they act in all these weird ways, acting tough and hard and all this other stuff, man. F these 304s and all this other stuff and talking all that stuff. Well, a lot of that hardness or whatever, it's not just hate for no good reason. A lot of these folks are speaking out of pain. They're speaking out of hurt. They've been through some things. And so that conversation that goes deeper into that never happens because nobody even cares to even look underneath the surface. Nobody cares to even know about that stuff. Most men have the feeling that nobody cares about what they go through. They have to suffer this burden alone. People are just going to see them as monsters or whatever whenever they react certain ways, and it is what it is. We have to swallow it and just let it be the monster. That's just our burden that we have to bear and keep on marching through as men. That's just what we got to do. And so where do we go from here? I don't know. You guys have to tell me, but my job is I'm gonna talk about what's going on. I'm exposed, not necessarily exposed like this is some secrets agenda or nothing like that. And I'm not the new Cat Williams or something like that, but I'm just calling things for what they are. And when you watch videos online and look at what's going on, try to look at it from the frame play. Hey, is this person going through some pain? Well, have they had some experiences that led them to be where they are? They didn't just get there overnight. Every villain, because a lot of guys are made to be villains. We're blamed for a lot of stuff in society, everything bad, the patriarchy. And at some point, what's the villain origin story? All right, just like the comic books, it's good to write a good comic about what the origin story of that villain. How did they turn into that person? I think they had the Joker movie that came out, right? Kind of tell his story of how he became the person that he is. What turned him into that person? All of a sudden you hear that story and it's like, wow, they used to be a regular person. Like, man, that's some terrible stuff that happened to. Wow, what? Oh, people treated them wrong. Oh my gosh. And all of a sudden, like, oh, now I see why he is that way. Ain't that something? And it brings more life into the picture. It doesn't necessarily mean that if he's if the guy's truly a villain, that it's okay to be a villain, right? People have to be good people regardless. But I think we need to get to a point where we understand each other just a little bit better, so that one, we can have more empathy, be more graceful, be open to more perspectives and interpretations of situations. Because if you're at the point where men don't have emotions because I don't see them, they ain't exposing them to me, so therefore it ain't there, then when men make a claim about something, you're not gonna believe a word they say. It's not gonna pass the smell test for you. You're gonna shoot it down every rip. And so he knows his reality. He knows what he's been through. He just has to take what it is, realize that that's what it is, and we just got to walk our separate ways. But do we have to keep walking our separate ways, or can we come together? That's the question I want to pose to you guys. Can we come together and make this thing happen? Can we change how we relate, gentlemen, boys and girls? We have a choice to make. So I won't draw this conversation out too long. I'll go ahead and bring it to a close. But I appreciate you guys staying here, listening in, and let's go ahead and call it a night. You guys be good. Take care of yourselves and each other. All right. Till next time. Like the video, share the video. If you think somebody could come away with something positive from this.